Throughout the galaxy, the Zorians were known for their ruthless efficiency in war, having built their empire through countless successful conquests. Their history was marked by a relentless pursuit of power, with each new campaign adding more worlds and resources to their ever-expanding dominion. The Zorians prided themselves on their strict adherence to traditional military tactics, honed over centuries to perfection. Their warriors were highly disciplined, their strategies meticulously planned, and their technology far superior to that of most other species. In every conflict, they followed the same blueprint, a swift, calculated strike designed to overwhelm their enemies before they could mount any significant resistance. Their reputation was one of near invincibility, and their mere presence in a star system often led to immediate surrender from those who knew of their methods. When the Zorians set their sights on Earth, they viewed humanity as just another primitive species to be subjugated with minimal effort. To the Zorians, humans appeared disorganized and technologically backward, relying on outdated methods of warfare that were no match for the collective's advanced weaponry and strategic prowess. The Zorian leaders anticipated a swift and decisive victory, expecting the humans to fold quickly under the pressure of their initial assault. They saw Earth as an easy target, ripe for conquest and assimilation into their empire. Confident in their superiority, the Zorians made little effort to study humanity's history of conflict, assuming that their usual tactics would suffice to crush any resistance the humans might offer. The invasion began with a standard Zorian attack pattern. A massive fleet of warships descended upon Earth, initiating a bombardment designed to overwhelm human defenses and create widespread panic. The Zorian commanders watched with satisfaction as their ships breached the planet's atmosphere, confident that their display of overwhelming force would lead to an immediate surrender. Ground forces were deployed in key locations, targeting major cities and military installations with precision strikes. Everything proceeded according to plan in the early stages, with little to no resistance from the humans. It seemed to the Zorians that their expectations of an easy victory were being met, and they prepared to deliver the final blow that would bring Earth under their control. However, as the invasion progressed, the Zorians began to encounter something unexpected. Instead of the orderly surrender they had anticipated, they were met with chaos. Human forces responded in ways that defied the Zorian understanding of warfare. Rather than retreating or capitulating, human soldiers employed tactics that seemed illogical and reckless. They attacked from unexpected angles, used unorthodox methods, and engaged in hit-and-run strategies that threw the Zorian forces into disarray. The rigid, highly coordinated Zorian military found itself struggling to adapt to a battlefield that made no sense to them. Every time they thought they had a human strategy figured out, the humans would do something entirely unpredictable, forcing the Zorians to constantly reassess their approach. The initial confidence of the Zorian commanders began to waver as they realized that what they had dismissed as incompetence was, in fact, humanity's greatest strength. Humanity's defense against the Zorian invasion was anything but conventional. Rather than meeting the invaders head-on in organized formations, human forces adopted a series of unpredictable and unorthodox tactics that left the Zorians bewildered. Small, mobile units struck at random, avoiding direct confrontations and instead focusing on sabotage, guerrilla warfare, and psychological operations. Ambushes were common, with human soldiers using the terrain to their advantage, launching hit-and-run attacks that disrupted Zorian supply lines and communication networks. These tactics, though chaotic and seemingly disorganized, were highly effective in creating confusion and panic among the invaders. The Zorians, accustomed to fighting disciplined armies that adhered to the same rigid principles as themselves, found it nearly impossible to predict or counter these unpredictable maneuvers. The stark contrast between the Zorians' rigid approach to warfare and humanity's adaptability became increasingly apparent as the conflict dragged on. The Zorians relied on strict adherence to their tried-and-true methods, expecting that their superior technology and organizational skills would eventually bring the humans to heel. However, this inflexibility became a liability when faced with an opponent that refused to fight by the rules. Human forces quickly adapted to changing circumstances, modifying their strategies as needed and exploiting every weakness in the Zorian approach. While the Zorians were bogged down by their reliance on procedure, humans thrived in the chaos, using their creativity and resourcefulness to turn the tide of battle in their favor. The Zorians' inability to adapt to this fluid battlefield exposed the limitations of their traditional strategies and left them vulnerable to defeat. As the Zorians struggled to maintain control, their leaders made several key mistakes in their attempts to apply standard military tactics against the humans. They underestimated the resilience of human forces, committing their troops to frontal assaults that were easily outmaneuvered. The Zorians also failed to recognize the importance of securing local support, assuming that the population would either submit or be irrelevant to their campaign. This miscalculation allowed human resistance to flourish, with civilians providing critical intelligence and support to the military effort. Additionally, the Zorians' reliance on centralized command structures slowed their response time, making it difficult for them to react effectively to the fast-paced and decentralized nature of human operations. These errors compounded the challenges they faced and contributed to their growing difficulties in the conflict. Frustration among the Zorian leadership grew as the war progressed. What they had expected to be a quick and decisive conquest had turned into a protracted and costly struggle. Every strategy they employed seemed to falter in the face of human ingenuity and unpredictability. Their advanced technology, which had always been their greatest asset, was rendered ineffective by tactics that they could neither predict nor understand. The Zorian commanders, once confident in their superiority, began to question their assumptions and their ability to achieve victory. The longer the conflict continued, the more their frustration turned to desperation as they grappled with the reality that they were losing a war to a species they had vastly underestimated. Humanity's resilience became the defining factor in the conflict as they refused to succumb to the overwhelming force of the Zorian invasion. Despite the initial shock and devastation, human determination only grew stronger. The more the Zorians pressed, the more fiercely humanity resisted. Every setback was met with renewed effort, and every loss was turned into a lesson quickly absorbed and applied in the ongoing defense. Communities rallied, and the spirit of resistance spread across the globe, uniting people from all walks of life in the fight against the invaders. This resilience, born out of countless struggles throughout human history, began to shift the momentum of the conflict. The Zorians, who had expected a swift and easy conquest, found themselves facing an enemy that simply refused to be defeated. Human forces leveraged their resilience with unconventional warfare that further confounded the Zorians. Guerrilla tactics became the norm, with small, mobile units striking at the invaders and then disappearing before a counterattack could be mounted. In one instance, a group of civilians used makeshift traps and decoys to mislead and ambush a highly trained Zorian squad, turning what should have been a routine operation into a costly defeat for the invaders. Another example involved the use of cyber warfare, where human hackers infiltrated Zorian communication networks, spreading misinformation that caused confusion and disarray among the alien ranks. These unconventional methods, while seemingly chaotic, were highly effective in undermining the Zorian war machine. They disrupted supply lines, sowed discord among the troops, and gradually eroded the invaders' ability to maintain control over the areas they had occupied. As these unorthodox strategies continued to succeed, the Zorians began to show signs of desperation. Their traditional methods, which had brought them victory in countless other campaigns, were failing in the face of an enemy that did not play by their rules. The invaders started to panic as they realized they were losing control of the situation. Their once coordinated efforts became increasingly erratic as they tried and failed to adapt to the rapidly changing conditions on the ground. In a desperate bid to regain the upper hand, the Zorian leadership ordered more aggressive tactics, including indiscriminate bombardments and scorched earth policies. However, these actions only deepened the chaos, further alienating them from the human population and making their defeat more inevitable. With the Zorians on the back foot, the tide of the invasion began to turn decisively in humanity's favor. The invaders, now outmaneuvered at every turn, found themselves unable to maintain their foothold on Earth. Their losses mounted as human forces, growing more confident with each victory, began to take the offensive. The once feared Zorian army, now fragmented and demoralized, struggled to regroup in the face of relentless human attacks. As the humans pressed their advantage, it became clear that the Zorians were no longer in control of the war. The stage was set for a final push that would see the invaders driven from the planet, marking the beginning of the end for their ill-fated campaign against the species they had grossly underestimated. The realization that victory was out of reach struck the Zorians like a hammer blow. After weeks of relentless pressure, they found themselves unable to maintain their grip on the territories they had so confidently invaded. Their advanced technology and meticulously planned strategies had failed to secure the decisive victory they had expected. The unyielding resistance and the sheer unpredictability of human tactics had worn down their forces, breaking their morale and shattering their confidence. Commanders who once believed in their invincibility now faced the stark reality that their invasion had turned into a catastrophic failure. The turning point came when their central command, overwhelmed by reports of continuous setbacks and mounting casualties, finally accepted that further efforts would only lead to total annihilation. As the decision to retreat was made, the once organized Zorian forces quickly descended into chaos. Orders to withdraw were issued, but the execution was far from orderly. With communication networks disrupted by human cyber warfare and their supply lines in shambles, many Zorian units were left stranded, isolated from the main force. Desperation set in as they attempted to fight their way back to the extraction points, but their disarray only made them easier targets for the relentless human forces. In their final days on Earth, the Zorians faced a nightmare scenario. The very tactics they had once ridiculed had brought their empire to its knees. The few Zorian ships that managed to escape Earth's atmosphere did so under heavy fire, leaving behind the shattered remnants of what was once a proud and powerful invasion force. Humanity's victory over the Zorians sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The defeat of such a formidable power by a species the Zorians had considered insignificant became a legendary tale, a testament to the power of resilience and adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. For the Zorians, the loss was a humbling experience, forcing them to re-evaluate their approach to warfare and their understanding of other species. For humanity, the victory became a defining moment, marking their emergence as a force to be reckoned with on the galactic stage. The lessons learned during the conflict would shape future strategies and diplomatic relations, ensuring that humanity would never again be underestimated. In the aftermath, Earth began to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever before, while the Zorians retreated to their homeworlds, their expansionist ambitions shattered, leaving them to ponder the true cost of their hubris.